What is going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to show how to install Docker and Docker Compose on an EC2 instance running Ubuntu on AWS. That was a lot of three-letter acronyms. I just realized that. So we're going to make a virtual machine on Amazon Web Services and then install Docker and Docker Compose. So let's get right to it. So if I switch here, I am in my AWS account and I can just search for EC2. And once that comes up, I think I need to do console login, EC2 instance. Let's try AWS Console. There we go. Sometimes that can be a little confusing. Rough start. Okay. Well, you see I've got no instances running, so I'm just going to launch an instance. And I'm just going to call this demo instance and select Ubuntu. And 22.04. This is January 18th, 2023. That is the latest version. You could choose different versions if you'd like, but I'm just going to go with the default it gives me. And scrolling down, 1 virtual CPU, 1 gig of memory. If I switch back here, not sure what's going on there. Let me bring Chrome back up, and I'm just going to look for Docker Compose system requirements. And can I make this bigger? We see here it needs 4 gigs of RAM. The rest is probably pretty standard. We click in there, see if it gets us a nice summary. Docker installed. That's about it. But 4 gigs of RAM, so we need an instance with at least 4 gigs of RAM, but there is a gotcha because we are also running the operating system. I'm not sure if that takes it into account, but we probably don't want to cut that close. If you look, there is probably a 4 gig. Let's give ourselves some room. Can I make that bigger? All right. Like I said, give ourselves some room, make that 8 gigs, and I'm going to create a new key pair. I think I deleted all of mine. Yeah. We'll go with this one. That's fine. And I'll just call this demo. And let's see. I'm using Linux. If you're using PuTTY for whatever reason, probably on Windows, switch to Linux, just my advice. But OpenSSH will use .pem, create key pair, and you see I've got one in there named demo already, I guess, but that downloaded for me. Coming down, I think at some point I may have hosed the configuration of my default VPC virtual private cloud. So auto assign public IP, that's info. I want to switch that. Let me edit, and I'm going to enable that so it has a public IP and we can get to it from our local PC. All the rest of that's fine. The root volume has 8 gigs. I'm going to add an EBS volume. Let's see, free tier eligible customers. I've had this account for way over a few years, so I don't qualify, but I'll just do 20 gigs. That's fine. Magnetic standard. I'm just going to leave this running for less than 10-15 minutes, but you could do SSD, whatever suits your needs. All right, that all looks good. I'm going to go ahead and launch instance. That's going to take a few minutes, and while that's going on, I'm going to go ahead and peek at my key here, if I can. Unrecognized, unsupported data. All right, let me open up a terminal, and I'm just going to change to downloads. And I'm going to cat that out. And I think that was demo 1 like that. Was there a space? Let me double check. Okay, there's a space. So that probably means going to need to quote it like that. There we go. And with the single quote, that then let me do tab and kind of a hint saying, hey, there's a space in this file. Take that into account, and Linux was smart and nice enough to go ahead and autocomplete that for me. I'll make this a little bit bigger. Never, ever, under any circumstances, show a private key like this. I will be deleting this key right after this video. Do not store these in GitHub. Do not store them in unsecure places. Bad things can, and I won't say probably will, but very bad things can happen. So I'm just going to copy that and switch back to my VM where I will be working here and change into my .ssh directory. If you don't have one already, you would just need to make it with make dir .ssh. But I already have it, so I'm just going to do demo.pem. Oh, I guess it helps if I choose an editor. Nano is the one I want. Oh, does this not have... Not sure if I have copy and paste enabled on this VM. Oh, shoot. Okay, that seems to be working now. Oddly enough, I think what happened was I had this VM suspended. I just upgraded my Linux Mint version, and for some reason that was mangling some stuff. So I shut down the VM, restarted, and now that clipboard is working again. So let me see if I can make this a little bigger. And of course, that's not working. There we go. All right. Now, I'm just going to do demo.pem, paste in my private key there, Control X to save it, and then we also need a config file, and I'm just going to call this AWS Docker, and dot meaning the current directory slash demo.pem, which is the private key it's going to use to connect to my EC2 instance. If you put root here, it will yell at you, and actually I can show that real quick. This instance should be up now, and there's our IP address. Let's see, Control C, see if I can copy that. And we're just going to paste that in here, Control Shift V. That looks good. Control X to save it. And if you don't know or you're not familiar with config files, if you put a file named config in your .ssh directory, SSH will automatically look for a configuration like this where the host, that AWS Docker, is just the shorthand name that we can use rather than making a long SSH connection string. And then the host name is going to be the IP address, the user identity file, which is going to be whatever credential you're using to connect with. I'm going to hit enter to save that, and SSH, I can now tab because it sees that in the config file. And I'll go ahead and accept that fingerprint. And notice we get a big warning here. Actually, let me make that a little bit bigger. Kind of hard for me to navigate, but probably better for you to read. Okay, permission denied. The permissions 664 are to open. And just copy that. I forget, do they need to be 444? We'll find out together. All right, permissions are to open. That's 777. Okay, 600 or 400. I always get this mixed up. I think this is root permission is the first character, group is the second character, and third is indicates the user permissions. So let's go ahead and chmod 600, and we just need to do demo.pem. All right, let's try that again. Please log in as the user Ubuntu rather than root. Okay, we'll do as it says. To do that, we will modify our config file and make that Ubuntu. Control X, Y, enter. And just in case you're curious, not familiar, ls-lah, I'm going to see the permissions. So this says basically read write. And that's a little odd. One, I believe, is the root user. Could be mistaken. But that's where you would see the permissions, and that's what it was looking for. That is, read write is the 6. A 0 means no permissions, so that's how those are set. I'm going to Control L to clear that out a little bit. And all right, here we are. And we can run htop, and we can see we're using 188 meg, so we have 7.74 gigs of memory free. So that's what I was kind of talking about a little bit ago, saying the system's going to use some of your resources. So if you're looking at software that says, hey, I need exactly no less than 4 gigs, well, if we had chosen 4 gigs, we would have 3.74 gigs probably. I'm just going to Control C out of there, and we can exit. I'm going to switch to Visual Studio Code just so we can work a little better. And that's fine. To use the config file, I'm going to go to Extensions, SSH, Remote SSH. I already have that installed. Once you have that installed in VSCode, you can then come down here, open a remote window. I want SSH. For some reason that's taking a moment. Usually it's really quick. And AWS Docker, which it sees from my config file. Permission denied, public key. All right, let's see here. Well, the public key is on AWS, can't do much about that. Connect to host in current window. Let's close that. AWS Docker. Sudo da. Got some statistics there. Let's just try that again. Maybe it wants a RSA key instead. Let's see. Let me do a tunnel. It's not what I want. Wants me to save as sudo. Okay, I have no idea what I just did. I will research that later, but that worked, so let's keep going. All right, so here I am, and if I try to run Docker, nothing's going to happen. And I don't really care for Docker's documentation on this. Docker compose install, and because we're on Ubuntu, we're going to need to install Docker and Docker compose for Ubuntu Linux. So if we go to the compose plugin here, it's actually hiding down here in Ubuntu. We see we're going to update, we're going to add CA certificates, curl, GNUPG. We're going to add this repo, have the key for it so we can verify that we are pulling from the legitimate repo. And let's see. That's going to get the code name of this distribution of Ubuntu, and then does some other updates. And I'll tell you what, if you don't know exactly where you're going, this can be a little confusing. So I have made a script, and I will try to post a link to this repo in the description of this video. It's just a lot easier to run. So here, I'm going to open folder, and I'm going to make a new file, install Docker, and actually that's all it needs to be called. Just going to paste the contents. It says use bash. If you're not familiar with bash script, this just saves you from having to hit Y. It's pretty much all the same commands that Docker documentation has out there. One of the additions is, though, I've added add the current user, so in our case Ubuntu, so you could sub that user variable with Ubuntu, or if you're logged into a different name, it's just nice in case, I don't know, you forget what name you logged in with. It will add that user to the Docker group, and then this new grp Docker should just refresh that. So I'm going to Control S to save that, open up a terminal, make it executable with chmod +x. Let's see here. And actually, I should make this bigger. My apologies. Should have done that a lot sooner. Got distracted with that key error. And let's see. If I do ls, there's install Docker. You see that it's white. That means it's a file. But if we chmod +x, and then run ls, you see it's green, indicating to us that it is executable. And to execute, ./ being the current directory, and then the file, and let me just move back because we will need to execute this with sudo, and we'll give that a minute to run. And while that's running, let me see if I can find, I don't know, simple Docker compose. Example's probably good. That's a lot of steps. I was looking for something like hello world. Oh, these are probably going to be big as well. Let's see how that install is going. Let's see. Docker compose. And I'm going to su. Oh, actually, I probably should have just ran this as my regular user. So su for switch user Ubuntu, Docker compose. And let's see, we'll just make a quick Docker compose, new file, Docker compose.yaml. And let's see, image, hello world. And actually let me Data Talks Club, GitHub. I know they've got good examples ready to go. That was the 2021 cohort, or 2022. Airflow. Oh, actually, Docker compose. Well, I guess I could just say services and hello. Double check the syntax on that. Do need a colon. Save that. And Docker compose up. Okay. Let me try running that install script as my user. And I'm going to go ahead and overwrite that key file. And now let's see. All right. So that ran okay. We could, of course, make something a little more complex, like the example we saw. And then once that's done, we would just need to forward those ports. We do that here, forward port. That's 8080, I believe. And then we'll see. Should just take a moment, and we would just need to open up a browser, go to localhost 8080. That should be running. Let's see. Give that a moment. All right. So it's just taking a little while to spin up. So I feel like I might have wandered off the trail a little bit with some errors. So hopefully that didn't stretch out the video too long for you. And maybe you got some laughs watching me fumble around. So hopefully some entertainment in that, and it wasn't just mind-numbing. But that is how I would install Docker and Docker Compose in an EC2 instance. I will link the repo with that script down in the description. So I know it was a bit of a long video, but basically make an EC2 instance, give it more than 4 gigs of RAM, make that file executable, run it, and you should be good to go. And of course I forgot something. If you're not going to be using your VM, if you're not running scheduled tasks where it needs to be up, make sure you head back here to your EC2 instances, go to instance state, and you will want to stop your instance so you're not charged for it running. And if you're done with it, as I am, I'm going to go ahead and just terminate. And another bit of housekeeping, if we go to keys, EC2 keys, key pairs, that's what I should have searched for. And of course it's unresponsive. Key pairs. Do I have that over here on the left? All right, fine, I'll find it myself. Oh, it brought it up, but it didn't get rid of the window. Awesome. Just click that. Actions, delete, delete. All right. So important, if you don't want to be charged, make sure you get rid of your resources, shut them down when you're not using them. So hopefully this helped you a little bit, and I will see you in another video.